let's talk about your final video. Think about what you've learned this semester. Think about the things that, oh, now that I've done them, now I know how to do them. Now I would love to, like, another shot, boom, to really nail it. This is that project, okay? So what have you mastered? Use this project to show off your new abilities, all right? This project is small and straightforward, but it's designed to build on the experience and the progress you already have. So I encourage you, strive to build on and improve on your previous work in at least some way. Okay, we're gonna do short interviews that are great, super quality in a short amount of time. Here's the concept. We're all gonna ask basically the same questions of someone we know. So the premise is 2020 is soon be over. Thank goodness, right? Eventually, there'll be a vaccine for COVID-19. The presidential election will be settled. American society will continue to wrestle with our social issues. So in what ways are we going to go back to our lives as they were in 2019? And what is going to be changed forever? So what is the new normal going to look like? All right. So I've written out some instruction sheet to go into this in depth. So anything I talk about here in this video does not replace you carefully reading the instructions. The basic concept is that I want you, now you know how to do an interview, you know how to get good content, you know how to build rapport with someone, you know how to set up the camera and use a microphone to get good audio and to frame the subject well. You know how to do lighting, all right? So we're gonna practice with lighting on this. It needs to be at least a 3-light setup. If you wanna use more lights, that is totally fabulous. I am all for it, all right? And you know how to do some editing. So it is gonna be edited smooth, it's gonna look polished, it's gonna have titles at the front and the end, and it's gonna look like a nice finished piece. So you're gonna pick somebody that you can interview and arrange this really quickly, right? Because we just don't have that much time. So you're gonna do that. That cannot be somebody you've already interviewed for class. This class or any other class this year, all right? This semester, sure, this semester, okay? Not the person you've already interviewed, not the person you're interviewing for another final, so you can't, not double dipping, and not someone that you've already interviewed for another class, all right? It can be someone you know, that's fine, etc. This needs to be somebody, like, I know, like, your schedules and their schedules and all that is going to be a big deal. So, you know, I'm fine. Whoever you want to interview, but just remember the bottom line is your video needs to be interesting. So it can't be boring. It can't be boring. So yes, it is your job to do an interesting interview. That if your person's photogenic or not photogenic, or talkative or not talkative, that's all on you. Okay, whoever you want to interview, as long as you haven't interviewed them before and you can work with them, all right, your project ends up interesting. That's the bottom line. Otherwise, the format is somewhat similar to the interview project we've already done. There's no B-roll required, and it is a minimum of 1 minute. 60 seconds, that's it. If you want to do it longer, that's great. If you want to add B-roll, that's great. Not required, okay? I would rather have it really tight. I'd love to have great exposure and, you know, all the things of it working right, and be shorter and less fancy. But if you are feeling good, if you have time, if you want to make this something that is like really for your portfolio, that shows off all the skills that you have learned and really tops things off, then definitely I am completely open. I would love to see anything you can do. Knock my socks off. So let's talk. I think this will be easier if we just talk through the deadlines. Let me bring up, let me bring up a calendar. All right. Here is the day I'm recording. This has just been posted, on Blackboard. So we'll be looking at this on the 12th. And your first footage, okay, so the interview, that's all, is due the 24th, November 24th. So you have about a week and a half to do your interview and get all your footage. This is also the last day that we actually have in-person classes on campus. After this, we go home for Thanksgiving break and we never actually physically see one another again for the rest of 2020. Okay, so then you got, so you've got all of your footage by this date, December 1st. December 1st, your draft is due. Okay, so you've got over a week, well, you've got a week including the vacation to edit. It's a minute long, okay? I really think that's doable. Sorry, brain fart. Yes, that is doable. Your draft is due here. This gives me a day or two to look over it and give you feedback, gives you a day or two to make any adjustments you want. Saturday, December 5th at midnight. This is when your final project is due. Saturday, December 5th at midnight. Okay? That's D-Day. Your actual final exam time is on December 8th. You will meet, so if it's due on Saturday, then you have 2 days to go online to the discussion board and give each other feedback. All right, I'll spell that out. We'll do it just a little bit differently than we've done it in the past, but that is what you'll do. And so we will all meet virtually during your assigned exam time, and we will just look at your videos and we'll discuss them. And that's it. The things to pay attention to are basically starting today, you have 2 weekends before your footage is due, all right? And that means, like that's, and there's a limited amount of equipment, okay? Some of you need to do your project this weekend. This is totally doable, but also you're gonna have to hustle. Everyone is, okay? Again, it is totally doable. You guys can do this. You cannot slack, but you can do it, all right? So sharing equipment is gonna be a big issue. I've assigned you the same partners that you had for the last project. Some of you, worked in teams and that worked great. Some of you really didn't take huge advantage of your partners. That's fine. Again, I've given you someone. I think you guys are gonna have to work on coordinating equipment and sharing that, especially like over the weekend, handing it off. Everyone's gonna need to be considerate, all that stuff, all right? So again, your partner would be a great person to coordinate that with. I'm not requiring it. On the other hand, if I get word back that you have not covered your partner's back, if they've asked you for something and you haven't been there for them, or you haven't been able to work with them in any way, you refuse to work with them, you've been a deadbeat, it will affect your grade, okay? Just take that into consideration. So the main things are, what I'm looking for is, I'm looking for you to do a good job for that, okay? So again, I would expect that everyone would use the school's camera, and I would expect you to use good microphones, and I would expect you to use the school's lighting equipment. If you can find a way around that, then you can make your own home lighting as long as it's good, and as long as I can't tell the difference. And you still have to have like at least 3 points. I need to be able to count the lights and see like that it looks like a good polished job, okay? I think for most of you, it's gonna be easier to use the actual equipment than to jack up a system that imitates the natural equipment, the real equipment, okay? But again, totally up to you. If you have a situation where there's COVID in your family, or some situation where you absolutely can't have contact with anyone else, talk to me about it. If equipment really does become a huge issue for you, talk to me about it, all right? If there is a really legitimate reason that whatever, then talk to me about it, okay? I can be reasonable, reach out to me, but like this is due, this is the end of the semester. There's just not much wiggle room for anything. I want to see you, like I said, I want you to have a person who's interesting, to do an interesting interview. Again, it doesn't have to be long. I've given you some questions on your assignment sheet that are suggested. Again, like before, we'll put all these together and we'll have a snapshot of different people's ideas of what is the new normal going to be like. You may do B-roll, definitely not required, okay? But it definitely needs to be not someone sitting against a wall where we can see shadows, or where it's poorly lit, or where like the lighting is so low that they have huge grain because you had to like crank the ISO all the way up. Like, it needs to look nice. It needs to sound nice. There needs to be not a lot of background hiss. I don't recommend the studio. I discourage that. Mostly, I just consider like the studio is basically kind of a cop-out for this assignment. Not terribly, but like you could go, like, obviously your background and things are gonna be really clean in the studio. And so not everybody's gonna have access to the studio, and it's like, it's so easy, you just go there and everything is clean. Whereas if you are like in an environment and you are, you know, using your lighting and arranging things yourself to make things look clean. By clean, I don't mean barren. There can be, you know, like, oh, if you're looking at me, look, there's an interesting plant right in the background, right? I hope your framing is a little bit better than this, but you can use the principles that we've talked about in our lighting sessions to, you know, and apply that to a location. Those of you that want to take this further, there are a few ways to do this. So some ways that, yeah, you could knock my socks off are, you could include B-roll. You could do things like have a second camera, so that, you know, it's a 2-camera interview, and that gives you more, you know, obviously that gives you more angles and things. A couple of you did that for the first interview. Most of that, you know, it looked pretty nice. So you've seen some examples of that already. There is really cool equipment that you guys haven't checked out yet. For instance, we have a couple sliders, which are the pieces so that you can add like some slow camera movement to your project. Would not do that just for the interview itself, but for B-roll, that could be a nice, like, super nice touch if you use it properly. You could create motion graphics. That would be another way to like really add polish, to really add something else, you know, to your titles, other things. I encourage you to use music. You're not required to. But again, if it needs music, you should have music. And it should, again, be polished. Things should be the right audio. I should hear the volume, you know, the interview speaker. There should not be a lot of hiss in the background. If there's any music, right, it needs to come in much lower. Those types of things. So general principles that we've already talked about, you're going to put those into place. This is worth 50 points overall. And if you have any questions, let me know. I look forward to seeing your projects.